This video is brought to you by a cute ass introduction that we almost didn't get, but more on that in a bit. Welcome loons, goons, and anyone ready to swoon. I'm Zara, and like the rest of the world, I am obsessed with Heated Rivalry. For the 1% of you that's made it here who aren't, I'm gonna make it my mission to convert you by the end of this series. For everyone else, congratulations, you've made it! You have scoured through all the material that there is of Heated Rivalry on the internet, and like me, you've come to the conclusion that we need more. So that's what I'm here to provide. I love analyzing TV and movies and books, getting into like the mind of the character. Why are they doing what they're doing? How are they moving in their world? How does the story go? So that's what we're going to do in this series. Gonna look at all of this, analyzing, overanalyzing, yapping about it. Also looking a bit of like the symbols that's put in, how things are like framed, and what can we get from this as well. So let's just get into it. Let's not spend any more time on this intro. This video contains spoilers for Heated Rivalry Season 1. We're starting off on the first scene of the first episode. Yes, surprisingly, we're going in chronological order. This is like the introduction scene where we get introduced to our two main characters, Ilya Rosanov and Shane Hollander, which is like a really great little cute insight into what they're about, how they're interacting with the world and each other, and sort of getting some hints to like their personality and how they behave. And like I said in the beginning, we almost didn't have this scene. Originally, it was like a 6-minute scene with Shane awkwardly trying to make small talk and Ilya not really reciprocating anything other than maybe a few words. But when it came to do the editing and putting the episode together, they didn't really know what to do with it. It didn't really work how they had planned or intended, so they just cut it all. It wasn't until the editors were getting the trailer together and started to put in some little bits from this introduction scene that they started to see how it could actually work. And from what I understand, it was sort of the editors coming to the creators and being like, oh, look how good this works. Really happy that they did this because I think it's such a perfect way to start the scene or to start the show. I'm not really sure if they plan to put some other little scene in here at the beginning or if they were just gonna cut straight to It's Cold in Saskatchewan and have like the commentators introduce the characters. But I'm really glad that we got this little like private introduction and interaction between the characters first. This way we also get to see like how are they privately and like in real life, as opposed to when we go to the commenters introducing them and some of their qualities. It's very much how are they perceived from the outside, how is like the sports world viewing them, and it's maybe not actually how they are, but we're gonna talk more about that when we get to that scene. But so, this scene starts sort of before it really starts. What do I mean with this? Well, we sort of start to get some sound effects, the sounds of the wind and the lighter flickering already from the scene when we're still seeing like the title cards with the production companies on. And I feel like what this does is sort of like make you pay attention, make you like sit up and have your brain start to work and be like, oh, what's going on here? What's happening? I need to have my brain on. You start to like imagine what are these sound effects and what's going to happen when you get to see the visuals as well. I think this is like a really clever way to make your brain work and for you to pay attention, because the show is so much about paying attention to what you see as well. It's not a second screen type of show. So much of what is going on and so many clues about the characters and how they feel and behave, why they're behaving the way they do, comes from between the lines. It comes from the looks, it comes from how the framing is set up. And obviously this show isn't the first show to do something like this, to have some sound effects before you really see the visuals, but I think it's a really great tool that they used in this way. When we get to see the visuals, we open up on Ilya and he has his back turned to us. This immediately gives off a mysterious vibe to the character. Like, we don't know what he's about. Obviously, we don't know anything about the show when it first starts, but this even more gives like some unknown quality to the character. They could have framed it up a million different ways. We could have started with seeing his face. We could have also started like with seeing Shane walking up, many different things, but we started seeing Ilya from the back, getting some clues to like the character and how others might also perceive him. So he's coming off more closed off, and like it might take some time for us to really know his story and what he's about. When we look back at the end of the season, this is very evident. As opposed to Shane, whose struggles and pressure points we kind of see in this first episode, we see the pressure he puts on himself, his internal struggles and questions with his sexuality, his relationship with his parents, and kind of this pressure that he also feels from them. We see about his sponsorship deals and how he needs to be this archetype and like perfect role model to represent the sponsors. There also is like the role model aspect from being a minority that we see in some of these like microaggressions within the hockey world he faces. Of course, these things are expanded on throughout the season, but we get kind of immediately introduced to the aspects of them in this first episode and can like understand where Shane is coming from and how he reacts and responds and engages with the world. But when it comes to Ilya's struggles and his pressure points, it's something that is sort of dropped throughout the series. Of course, in this first episode, we see a lot of it. The pressure he puts on himself, obviously, the pressure and the abuse, dysfunction that is within his family, how that his father might be sick or there is some kind of worry around his father. We see how Ilya isolates himself, but the depths of it we don't really get like in this first episode. It's something we need to learn along the way. For example, his father's illness is something we little by little get more introduced to, of course, also as it gets worse. A big part of Ilya's puzzle is how his mom passed away, but we don't know about this until episode 2, and it isn't until episode 6 that we really understand the impact of what this has meant and what has happened. When we meet him here in the first episode, it's 2008 and his mom has passed away just 5 years ago. She hasn't been there for a lot of his formative years, and he probably hasn't felt the real stability in his home since she passed away, and who knows how it even was before she passed away as well, given what we get to know of her own mental struggles and the dysfunction in the family. All of these things that we learn reinforce how Ilya reacts to the world, and this first turned away camera shot really acknowledges this. He is not open, and it takes a long time for him to open up, and like I mentioned, for us to understand him as well. I think maybe this is why there is a lot of people that kind of dislike Ilya and kind of hate him, think he's mean and so on in like these first 2 episodes. I don't think we're meant to dislike him at all. I think there's a lot of clues put into his character and what he is about also in this first episode, in the first 2 episodes, like if you really pay attention to it. But I think it's really intentional how this story arc is laid out to us and how it's slowly revealed. But we will get way more into that as we go along the series and get to these different points. I find it kind of interesting that we're starting with Ilya and sort of Ilya's point of view, when in the book, and not to like compare too much, I don't want to compare the book and the show too much, but in the book we start with Shane, we're in Shane's POV and sort of his thoughts and feelings and everything to begin with, and quite a bit before we then get to Ilya. So I find it interesting that what we see first is Ilya, but also maybe it makes sense because maybe this actually is Shane's POV. We see in a bit after this that Shane is walking up towards Ilya to say hello to him. So this shot might actually be how Shane would view him. So it might also show how Ilya is a close-up person towards Shane. This also is sort of the story of Ilya becoming comfortable enough with Shane to share and for Shane to understand Ilya. But before we get to Shane coming up in the whole little interaction, we see Ilya and he's struggling with the lighter. This gives a lot of frustration into the character. Obviously, we hear the winds. We see that it's supposed to be a cool place. He isn't just out here to have a smoke for fun. Like, he really needs the cigarette. And it's incredibly frustrating that he can't get the thing that he needs. So it's very clear that he's like in a very stressful moment in his life right now. I also see he's like turned towards this no smoking sign. So it's clear that he's seen this, but he's choosing to smoke in this area anyways, even though he's not really supposed to. This also gives an indication into the character and personality. He's a bit of a rebel, potentially. He doesn't really follow the rules or conform to rules. He likes to put the boundaries, potentially, or he doesn't really have the energy right now to follow the rules. He's too frustrated to really care about it. And it also makes me wonder if this sort of shows how he maybe needs to have these moments of rebellion, like whenever he can. Like, obviously we know how critical his father is and how critical his like general environment is of him, and so he's like out here on his own where it's not really having that much consequence if he's rebelling. When Shane comes up to Ilya is a little startled. He doesn't really know what's going on, who is coming to him. Shane is just saying his name, so it could be for any reason. And we see how Ilya is like hiding away the lighter. He still has the smoke in his mouth, but he's hiding away the lighter, clearly showing that he wants to hide what he's doing because he doesn't know who's coming up to him. It could be a guard, it could be someone, you know, telling him off, getting him in trouble. He doesn't know, and he just has this like immediate response. I also saw people talk about this in the sense that Ilya is a child of trauma, and as a survival mechanism, he's had to be on guard around everyone. Like, everyone is a potential threat, and he needs to be careful what he do and how he behaves. When Shane introduces himself and sort of makes it clear that he's just there to say hello, you can see how Ilya relaxes, though not fully. He still has this mask on because he still doesn't really know what is Shane about, like what does he want from him. Ilya still keeps a very tight body language and he's not really giving anything away. When Shane is there, we also see how Ilya is able to light a cigarette. I've seen people talk about this in the sense that Ilya and Shane has this like spark between them. Obviously, they're like end goals, right? And so this is like the initial little spark moment, and this is shown with the lighter like having the spark in it and working. And I do think that's like a cute little sentiment, but I'm also looking at it a bit differently. When Ilya is alone, he's struggling and he's having a hard time. And this is symbolized with the lighter not working. It's bringing so much frustration with it. But then when there's someone else there, when Shane is there, when Shane is watching him, he can't really be weak. He can't be struggling. He needs to perform and have this like mask of like, nothing can hurt me on. And that's why he makes the lighter work. Not that he's magic or something like this, of course, but sort of like the symbolism of like, oh, the lighter has to work in front of other people because he needs to be strong and brave and be able to do anything. And I think this is like an important symbolism to have in here as well, in like the initial meet and in the initial introduction of the characters. I don't really believe this love at first sight thing, and I also don't think it's really part of the story. Shane is really excited to meet Ilya. You can see this in his demeanor, how he's smiling. He's very open, and he also is really active in this moment as opposed to like how we see throughout the show where Ilya is more the active one and Shane reacts to it. At least that's how I would put it. But here Shane is like very active. He really wants to meet Ilya and he's gonna make it happen. And I also think that he really wants this like private moment with Ilya, away from like his teammates and the people around, his parents. He just wants to like have a little private moment with Ilya to say hello. They're very much on like the same level at this moment. They're both prospected to be great like hockey players and be drafted at like the top. So Shane really sees them as like peers in this moment and really wants to have this like friendly connection with someone who might understand what he's going through, the pressures that he's under and the excitement that he has for going pro, and maybe also be able to give each other support or like spar with each other. Ilya is also very beautiful, and this is something Shane notices even if he doesn't really understand what he is seeing or why he is reacting to him, or if he doesn't really want to acknowledge that he is. And I think that's also a very important reason why this little moment needed to be private and Shane came all the way out here, even though he doesn't really have time for it. But of course, Shane's enthusiasm and excitement and mutual respect that he has like towards Ilya in this moment, it's not really reciprocated. Shane is like introducing them and saying his name as if they should know about each other. But Ilya isn't really giving anything of like, oh yeah, Shane Hollander, I know about you. Like, cool job yourself or something. Ilya is quite suspicious of Shane because Shane is behaving in a way that Ilya would never do himself. They're in the middle of this prospect cup. They're like competitors in this moment. They're supposed to beat each other. They're supposed to be focused on the game. And Ilya would never just go up to another player to say hello, to give a compliment without there being an ulterior motive, I think. At least not, like I said, in the middle of a cup. Like, Ilya doesn't trust anyone. He's incredibly distrustful. So someone coming up friendly who's supposed to be a competitor, of course he's not going to think that it's genuine, or he's going to question like, why is this person doing that? Also, as we hear like in the next scene with the commentator's introduction, Ilya is a person that likes to get under other players' skin. He is very good at like reading people, and he likes to play these like mind games to psychologically play around with the other players and be able to beat them in this way, to like open up like their weak spots. I find it incredibly cute when Shane greets Ilya and they're like shaking hands. Shane is both shaking the hand, and he also gives like a nod hello, and it just is like this like double greeting, like double enthusiasm. Ilya's behaving like he doesn't want to talk with Shane, and he probably doesn't really in this moment. Or maybe he's curious like what his motives are, why he's there, and if there's something he can get out of it. But probably he's mostly just trying to keep his own cards close and not give anything away. And so he just starts to like light up the cigarette. Now that the lighter, he makes it work, like I talked about before. And Shane, the cute bean that he is like, oh, I don't think you're supposed to smoke here. I feel like this really shows how much Shane is like a rule follower, and also how he wants to be helpful and he wants like other people to follow the rules that are set out. But also how he says this with I don't think. It also gives this like a softer way of saying, oh, don't do that, you know? It's not so like authoritative, it's not so like strict, and it sort of gives like room for like, maybe you can smoke, maybe I didn't know that, or maybe I don't know, there's something I don't know, so I'm not gonna like give like a definitive of like, oh, you cannot smoke. And it also is really cute how like Ilya is just staring at him, he's not responding at all, and Shane is sort of like, he gives this little like shrug or something of like, oh, sort of like, oh yeah, see, or like, you know. I just find this really cute, and I love these little moments that the actors are doing. It makes the characters feel so real, all these little movement and micro expressions that also so many people are talking about. I'm gonna like point out a few like along the way that I love, but this is like one that I noticed that I just find like so cute. Like it's like he's trying to keep a conversation, or like he's trying to talk with Ilya, even like non-verbally, and Ilya is just stone-faced. I also could imagine that Shane has like been practicing what he's gonna say, how he's gonna introduce and all of this like 100 times before he really got out to Ilya. And I think that he sort of came with a goal to like also give this compliment that he gives Ilya. He's an awesome player to watch, which is kind of like an interesting way of saying that. And I wonder if like Shane has like, if they like played against each other like the previous year or something. I looked up and I think you can be like 16 in the real world, at least, like starting to go into these like junior cups. So like time wise, like age wise, they should have been playing against each other like the previous year. So I'm like, maybe they already have sort of met and like have seen each other at least like play on the ice. This compliment by Shane is really genuine. Like he really means it. He really wants to bond and get like a connection with Ilya, I feel like, and he really appreciates how Ilya plays. And like Shane sees them more as like peers as opposed to Ilya, who is like seeing them more as competitors in this moment. And I think that maybe also is where there is a bit of friction in this like interaction. And Ilya is like giving nothing away, even when he's like responding to this compliment. He just says yes, and he's coming across like super confident and cocky and not really engaging again in the conversation at all. Like that's all Shane is getting, is just a yes. But then we also hear a sniff from Ilya, and as we see like throughout this series, Ilya sniffs when he's sort of nervous or unsure of himself. And so I think it's very interesting that we get the sniff here. Of course, it also could be cold. It's cold out. But if we're overanalyzing, I think it's interesting that we get a little sniff here after the compliment. It's like a little pause and then he sniffs. And I am sort of reading that like Ilya doesn't really take the compliment in. He doesn't really believe it, even though he's like cocky on the outside. He doesn't really believe it, like almost like he can't really take it in, like, and we see later on like how hard his father is on him, how much he criticized everything about him, even when he is doing incredible work and plays incredibly well. And maybe he also is like unsure at this point if he can really trust Shane, if Shane is actually being genuine or if he has some ulterior motives with it. This conversation is definitely not going how Shane was imagining, I don't think. And he doesn't really know what to do about it. So he just tries to like hang out and be cool. Because like, oh, Ilya's just hanging out by this wall, I'm just gonna do the same. And I find it really funny and cute how Shane is just like standing by the wall for like a second and then he's like, oh, I have to go. You also can like see that Ilya is sort of like looking at Shane when he goes to the wall, and it's like, what is he doing? Is he just like gonna hang out here, or like what's happening? They're also introducing this POV over the shoulder camera angle. This also sets up like throughout the season how these characters are looking at each other, for each other, checking each other out, and also how they need to have these stolen glances as the only way of communicating. When Shane says that he has to go because people are waiting for him, that is legitimately what is happening. Like, as I talked about earlier, like he really took his time out to seek out Ilya, even if it meant him missing some practice or some meeting or something. Like, he really wanted to meet Ilya, even if he didn't really have time for it. It isn't just this like, oh, it's like an awkward conversation, so it's like, oh, they're waiting for me. It's like, no, legitimately people are waiting. And also is a little bit of like Shane, he's doing what he wants to do as opposed to like what he's supposed to be doing here. That also is like an interesting little symbol, what do you call it, nugget in here. And when Shane then like pushes off the wall and is like, oh, I need to go, and like go to like shake his hand again, and it's like, good luck. Like Ilya's whole demeanor just shifts and he sort of like warms up a bit, or he like changes his tactic. He doesn't like fully open himself up. Obviously, he still has like a mask on, but it's a different type of mask. It's like a bit of like a smoother mask. And because he's like very like perceptive, he also is like sort of noticing that potentially Shane could maybe be interested in him. Potentially Shane is like checking him out. Ilya has already had queer experiences, and he has a lot of knowledge on how to navigate being queer in a very closed conservative country, how you pick up clues from one another. You can sort of see like how Ilya is like thinking of like, how can I continue this game? How can I leave this conversation maybe on a bit of like a warmer note than how I have been behaving? Which is when this "you won't be so nice when we beat you" line comes in, which is kind of playful, bantery, chirpy line when he isn't really responding to Shane like in the beginning of the conversation, and also make the audience question how much can Ilya understand. Like, you hear he has an accent, so you're like unsure like how much does he understand what Shane is saying. But with this line, you fully know that Ilya knows what's going on, and this also shows very much that Ilya is like keeping everything very close to his chest, and he opens up when he wants to, and he just has chosen not to give anything away, and he's just chosen to be very reserved. You see like how calculated he actually is here. Shane responds that's not happening, and he has like a smile back on his face. He's excited that Ilya actually is engaging with him. And this line, that's not happening, it can both mean like, oh yeah, you're not gonna beat us. It also can mean like, oh, I'm not gonna be not nice to you even if you beat me. Ilya's like playing along and bantering along and says, see you in final, which kind of means, yeah, we'll see who will beat who. And it's also a little bit of this like cocky era to it. But also it's giving me this vibe that like Ilya knows that Shane and like Canada is good. And importantly, he does know who Shane is. They end this conversation a bit more on equal grounds. And then, of course, Shane gives his little penguin wave off with his hand in the pocket and flapping out, which is like a very cute little detail and also very natural, I think. And again, adds to these little moments that the actors have put into the characters to make them feel real. A little simple thing in here that I also kind of like or find interesting is how we see Shane walking away from Ilya, and Ilya's like standing back when like this title card comes up. But it sort of is like a theme throughout the series of like them walking away from one another, not always on like bad terms, but when we see Shane walking away from Ilya, it is sort of these like pivotal moments in the series. For example, like in episode 2 after Vegas, it's like a very pivotal moment where they both sort of realize of like, oh shit, maybe I'm feeling more with this. We have Shane walking away after the tuna melt, which obviously is a huge freaking thing. And also Shane like leaving Ilya at the Tampa Bay, which also is like an important moment where they sort of are like reconciling, and acknowledging to one another that maybe there is more here. All of these we will like talk more about when we get to those scenes, obviously, but I just thought that was like interesting. It's just something that I got to think about and I wanted to share with you guys. Then we get the title card. I'm not sure if it actually is called a title card. Let me know if you know the lingo, but we get to know where we are, what year it is also, which is very interesting because when you just open up, you think, oh, it's like present day. But then we get this card saying December 2008, and it's like, oh, we're back in time. But I find it very interesting that we don't get this time and place at the very start. And I like that we don't do that. I like that we have this little introduction. And it sort of also shows of like, these characters could be anyone. They could be in any time, anywhere. This is something that is still happening. And it also puts an emphasis on like the work that needs to be done is not over. Like these institutions still need to be more progressive and more inclusive. And that is sort of like how the scene ends. And it kind of opens up into the second scene because we already are hearing the voiceover of the commentators when we see this title card and we see Ilya standing outside the building, again giving this, oh, we need to pay attention to what's going on, and also jumping straight ahead into the next thing, which is also something that you need to get used to a bit in this show. It moves really fast in the beginning. It jumps from like time to time to time, and it took me a little bit to get used to, but I think it works really great how they did it. And also because we got this more like quiet, even though it's very short, but it still is very calm and quiet introduction to these like characters, and also some of their struggles, I think, that they need to overcome throughout the show. The camera's POV in the scene is also set up to be in this like mid close-up type range, and it gives this energy that they're in this like bubble together. It's not completely super intimate, but it also just gives this like they're in this space together, just the two of them, without like sort of like outside distractions coming in. Next, we are jumping into like the commentators' introduction of the characters. We're getting some more nuggets about them, but like I said, again, it's more of this like outside view of them, so it's not necessarily how that they really actually are as people. And that's why I love so much that we have this little intro in the beginning where it's just the two of them. It's very calm and quiet, even though there are guards up in different ways. You still sort of see like, oh, what are these people about? And I really love that. I hope that you enjoyed listening in on my over analysis yep fest on this first little scene. Let me know if it made you think about something else, or if you have some different thoughts on what I've been talking about. I would love to know. I think it's so great, like when I watch other people doing reactions or commentary or reading on the threads, it sort of makes me think about the show in a different way sometimes, and makes my thoughts on it like evolve. And that's sort of also why I wanted to do this series, to sort of like open up all the thoughts that we can collectively have together and just talk about the show in so many different ways. So I'm excited to hear what you think, and I'm very happy if you stuck all the way through. I'm gonna try and have up like a few a week of these, because I think I'm gonna do like a scene by scene, maybe like clump a few scenes together, and I don't want it to be like a year-long project. That could be fun too, but I also really want to get this out. I'm so excited about everything about it, and I really want to talk about it. And until I see you again, just remember that you are great and beautiful and you can do it all. Seasons of sorrow, seasons of sorrow.